Here is the English version of your hook, carefully crafted to sound human, emotionally engaging, and optimized for text to speech software. I have adjusted the pacing and punctuation so the AI voice will naturally pause and emphasize the right moments. A few years ago, I sat completely frozen on my couch at 2 in the morning. The only light in the room was the harsh glare of my phone screen, reflecting a bleeding red chart. It was an investment, a market trend that I had poured almost all of my life savings into, holding on to the desperate hope that I could double my wealth in a matter of months. Instead of changing my life, the money I had scraped together over 2 long years simply evaporated, gone in just 1 week of market panic. That night, I closed the app and sat in the quiet dark. The scariest part wasn't the negative numbers staring back at me. The truly terrifying part was the realization that I had been gambling with my own future. I was trying to build a lifetime of security using the reckless mindset of a short-term gambler. In the days that followed, as I tried to regain my footing after that crushing blow, I began poring over different economic models. I was desperate for an answer to a single question. How do you build real, safe wealth? That was when I stumbled into the fascinating world of Shinise, the centuries-old businesses of Japan. Japan is arguably the most unique country in the world when it comes to business longevity. They are home to tens of thousands of companies that have existed for over 100 years. Thousands more have crossed the 200-year mark, and incredibly, some have been operating continuously for over a millennium. These family businesses have survived world wars, devastating earthquakes, global economic depressions, and some of the most horrific historical upheavals imaginable. Yet, they never collapsed. As I read their stories, a stunning realization hit me. These companies did not last this long because they were the fastest growing. They survived because they mastered the art of not going bankrupt. The modern financial culture we live in is built entirely on the idea of explosive growth. We idolize startup unicorns, self-made billionaires in their 20s, and people who buy houses and luxury cars after just a few months of catching the right trend. We treat our own wallets like aggressive startups. We max out our leverage to invest, endlessly chasing high-risk, high-reward opportunities. We are absolutely obsessed with the idea of beating the market. But these historic Japanese families, they do not play the game to win. They play the game to survive. To them, a massive short-term profit is nothing but a dangerous trap if it comes at the expense of the family's long-term stability. They move slowly. They take incredibly deliberate, solid steps. And they always leave themselves a safe way out. You do not need to own a company to learn how these Japanese families manage their money. Because the truth is, you are already a CEO. You are the founder of a very important enterprise, your own personal finances. In this video, we are going to break down 3 survival principles from Japan's century-old businesses. We will use them to help you completely reshape how you earn, keep, and spend your money. Let me be clear. There are no get-rich-quick schemes here. But if you apply these principles, you will begin to build a financial foundation that simply cannot be broken. Principle number 1, protect your Noren before you expand. One of the most important concepts in a Japanese family business is the Noren. It is the traditional fabric curtain hung outside a shop, but it represents so much more. It stands for the family's honor, their safety, and their absolute core. Their first rule of business is simple: never ever put the Noren at risk. The problem with most of us today is a total lack of patience. We make just enough money to get by. But before we even build an emergency fund or buy insurance, we immediately throw that money into highly volatile investments. We are terrified of missing out. We take our entire personal Noren and we place it on a gambling table. Imagine a guy named Marcus. Marcus manages to save $10,000 for the first time in his life. Instead of keeping it as a protective shield for his family, He uses financial leverage to surf a hot real estate trend or a hyped up crypto coin. When the bubble inevitably bursts, Marcus does not just lose his money, he loses his peace of mind, he loses his sleep, he loses his ability to take care of his family if someone gets sick. The Japanese do not do this. They follow the philosophy of hara hachibu, applying the 80% rule to their budgets. They always keep a buffer, a reserve of cash and safe assets large enough to help the business survive at least a few years of famine or disaster. They would much rather walk away from a highly lucrative opportunity than push their family's safety to the edge of a cliff. True wealth does not begin with how much money you can make. It begins the moment you make absolutely sure that you will never hit rock bottom again. Principle number 2, slow growth and the power of Kaizen. Once you are certain that you cannot fall to the bottom, the next step is not trying to shoot straight to the peak. This is where we reach the second principle of Japanese family businesses: slow growth. In modern business culture, the pressure is immense. If you open one store this year, you are expected to open 3 more next year. But in Japan, it is the exact opposite. There are mochi shops and tea houses in Kyoto that have maintained just one single location for 300 years. They do not build chains. They do not franchise. Instead, they focus on the concept of kodawari, a relentless dedication to quality. And they use Kaizen, the practice of getting just 1% better every single day. When you apply this to personal finance, it becomes the ultimate antidote to the modern disease of FOMO, the fear of missing out. We often get frustrated because we only managed to save $50 this month, or our investment portfolio only grew by 6% this year. We want massive numbers, and we want them right now. But the true power of solid capital is time. $50 saved and invested consistently into a safe index fund, combined with compound interest over 2 decades, will create a massive fortune. It will completely outperform any lucky gamble. These historic Japanese families deeply understand one thing: slow profit is the safest profit. Do not try to sprint in a marathon, but protecting your money and growing it slowly is really only the surface. These first 2 layers of defense are simply there to help you hold onto your wealth. The true secret, however, the one absolute core that allows these Japanese families to survive for centuries, completely breaking the curse of wealth, vanishing after 3 generations, lies in a much harsher decision. It is a profound choice that completely challenges the ego-driven culture of the West. In the West, wealth is almost always tied to the individual. People build fortunes to showcase their personal success. They buy supercars, live in massive mansions, and constantly broadcast their individual prosperity. But in Japan's century-old businesses, the survival of the family lineage, a concept known as IE, is infinitely larger than any single person, even the head of the family. One of the clearest examples of this is the incredibly strict tradition of mukoyoshi, which means adopting a son-in-law. If the biological son is not capable of managing the finances and the business, the patriarch will make a brutal choice. He will willingly set his own flesh and blood aside, legally adopt a highly capable outsider, and hand over the entire family wealth just to protect the shared legacy. Personal ego, or even bloodline favoritism, is never placed above the survival of the family. So, what is the personal lesson here? It is the absolute necessity of removing your ego from the way you spend your money. The financial tragedy of the modern world is that we spend our money to serve our egos far more often than we spend it to serve our actual lives. We buy incredibly expensive cars we cannot truly afford, just so our neighbors will think we are successful. We upgrade our phones every single year because we are terrified of looking outdated. We are literally draining our family treasury to fund meaningless, empty performances. When you adopt the mindset of a Japanese patriarch, you begin to practice danshari, the art of letting go. You use it to completely sever that desperate desire to show off. You realize that you do not need a luxury car if it drains your child's education fund. You do not need designer brands if buying them forces you to work yourself to the point of total exhaustion. You choose to place the freedom, peace, and financial safety of your family far above the whispers and opinions of the outside world. Looking back, you will realize that the way the Japanese build wealth is not some kind of mystical magic. It is a highly logical operating system. Protecting your Noren means always keeping a safe financial buffer and never, ever gambling with your emergency fund. Embracing Kaizen means accepting the quiet, sometimes boring reality of slow and steady accumulation year after year. And following the IE philosophy means placing the true peace of your family far above your own ego and the endless temptations of modern consumption. On their own, these individual habits might not give you the sudden thrill of hitting the jackpot on a trending stock. But when you carefully combine them, they create an absolutely impenetrable financial fortress. The world out there will always push you to run faster, take bigger risks, and buy more just to prove your worth. But quiet wealth is not built like a spectacular fireworks display that bursts into the sky and then quickly fades to black. It is built like an ancient temple in Kyoto. You dig the foundation deep, you choose the most resilient wood, and you stand incredibly still, even when the storm is raging around you. You are not just managing your salary for this month. You are writing the very first chapter of your family's prosperity for decades to come. Everything begins, not with a massive amount of money, but with a single choice. The moment you stop chasing short-term illusions and finally decide to protect your future. If this perspective has shifted the way you think about wealth, please subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey together. And I am truly curious. If you treat your personal finances like a family business, what is the very first thing you want to Kaizen or improve this month? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.